There's the second one, Sean.
Oh, little puppy.
Hold on, I got two right here. No, there's two right here, two little ones.
Obviously, when we pull up, if we're asking like, hey, is that your dog? They said when they approached it, it started to growl at them. They were obviously hesitant, but they're like, it doesn't look in good condition.
We found one dog in there that was barely alive. It's literally skin and bones.
Oh my God. That is just ridiculous.
Welcome to The Works, a show dedicated to Hillsborough County's Public Works Department. In this video, I'm going to break down what Public Works is and how they play a crucial part in our everyday lives. Hillsborough County's Public Works Department plays a vital role in supporting the community's daily needs and long-term growth by building and maintaining a safe, thriving community through collaboration, dedication, and taking pride in public service. Whether it's maintaining roads and sidewalks, improving stormwater infrastructure, or delivering major projects such as construction of a new library. Our Public Works is comprised of two primary departments, Engineering and Operations and Capital Programs. Engineering and Operations focuses on the day-to-day maintenance, safety, and functionality of transportation and drainage systems, as well as mosquito management services. Capital Programs oversees the construction of long-term infrastructure projects that support mobility, resiliency, and community development. Together, these departments are responsible for planning, building, operating, and maintaining the county's critical infrastructure. Now that you have an understanding of what Public Works is, this show will break down the roles Public Works plays in Hillsborough County. So be sure to subscribe on our social media pages and be on the lookout for future episodes.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome welcome to the June 10th meeting of the Hillsborough TPO. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and good evening again. Just for clarity for everybody, we actually will be having two meetings tonight. The first is the regular monthly meeting of the TPO to discuss regular business. Then we will adjourn and reconvene. We're not going anywhere, but we'll adjourn one meeting and call to order the second meeting, which is to discuss the annual update to the Transportation Improvement Plan, commonly referred to as the TIP. So if you're wondering what's going on as we're adjourning, that's what was going on. So I'd like to ask Ms. Desiano, would you please call the roll for the first meeting, please?
Ross.
Here.
Wostel.
Here.
Miller is excused. Myers.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Bowles.
Here.
Clendenin.
Here.
Hurtak. Here. Young. Can you please turn on microphones?
Here.
Thank you. Kilton.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Klug.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
Slater.
Here.
King. Joseph.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. And as many of you may have noticed, we have a new board member tonight. City Council member Nia Young has joined the board. Welcome aboard, and would you like to introduce yourself and say a few words?
Well, thank you all for having me. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the meeting. So, yeah, that's all.
Well,
Happy to be here with you all.
Very good. Well, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you. Yes. So, board members, has everybody had an opportunity to review our minutes from May 13th? And if so, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Myers, seconded by Board Member Stevens. Is there any, are there any corrections or adjustments to the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. The minutes are adopted. Public comment on agenda items other than the tip. We currently have no members of the public signed up to speak at this meeting. We do have some signed up to speak at the next meeting. We don't have anybody signed up for the staff. Did we miss something?
We have Chris signed up for the tip comments.
We do have you signed up for the tip, but I don't have you signed up for this one.
I did this before. Yeah, this is my second attempt trying to do a first comment, and I can't, I'm not successful in signing up for some odd reason.
Discretion.
Okay, well, I don't have you signed up, but I don't want to cut you off either. Since this seems to be isolated to one person and it's 3 minutes, I'll go ahead and allow you to.
Okay.
So if we could set the timer, please, Ms. Desiano. Mr. Villa, welcome.
All right, thank you all. And these views are just exclusively in my own. I do serve on the CAC. So let me begin. So Chris Vella, 33605, Ybor City. So lately I've noticed this board's behavior has been downright disrespectful, for the exception of what you just said, of course. For the past 10 years, we put up with backhanded remarks like, quote, "We do this all the time," unquote, because we still believe highway widening through our communities is bad. We appeared before this board, measured with historical evidence, the damages of I-275 and the downtown interchange has caused. And it wasn't just us, it was the media, professors, industry pundits, the elderly, children from my community. We pointed out that since the 1960s, every single operational improvement on the highway and the interchange has led to more crashes and congestions to the point where it looks like it hasn't even left the era. Now let's talk about the May 13th board meeting. Not even 24 minutes in, there was some complaints about managing projects. And there was a comment made that if someone were to be made president, they would take a, quote, blue ribbon approach, unquote. I'd like to remind everybody here and anybody who supports the Trump administration that between 2020, 21, and 25, Trump gutted out a lot of environmental review and checkpoints on infrastructure projects. What is before him and before all of y'all is the final process of what MAGA wants us to have. Around 37 minutes in, Board Member King makes a comment that we should remove bike lanes, and like Board Member Wastel said, in 47 minutes in, implies that we don't see these bike lanes in use. King takes it a step further, saying that he hasn't been heard after noting positive feedback from the Henderson and Manhattan study. There were many opportunities to provide feedback, but why now? The City of Tampa reported to me that we had over 500,000 miles of pedestrian activities this past year on the bike infrastructure. There were over 345,000 trips last year. So these instances would have been noticed anybody coming to the county center. It's quite obvious. Later in the discussion, the board wanted to know about the pedestrian crashes. So here's the figure I got from the city. We had 832 alone, and we had 83 that were incapacitated, 23 of which were fatal, and 280 with injuries. And I think on my way over here, I saw that we kind of made that top 10 for the most dangerous metro areas in the nation for bicycle riders. Towards the end of the meeting, there was a remark about the $400 million for the I-275 going away. This was a false narrative pushed by former Secretary Gwynn. Under the law, there's no money for the project. There's still no money if you look at the tip. FDOT competes with other districts to get earmarked funding from Florida legislation. They do this to be viable in front of Florida legislation, regardless if there's actually any liquid that exists in these projects. The difference here, in the next 5 years, there is no money. And I want to remind the board that just because it's just a quarter of us in the county, we can gladly keep our tax revenues and watch the county go utterly bankrupt in less than a year. But it doesn't make sense to play these tit for tat games. Let's just be productive, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villa. We'll move into committee reports and advance comments. Rick Fernandez, our CAC chair, is here. Mr. Fernandez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Pretty impressive group when you're all here. For the record, Rick Fernandez. I'm the chair of your Citizens Advisory Committee, have been for the last 3 years. I'm here now to report on the meeting of our June 3rd gathering. The CAC held a workshop on May the 20th The CAC held a workshop on May the 20th focused on the tip and held the regular meeting on June 3. This presentation will focus just on the June 3 meeting, when the CAC received presentations on the Local Roadway Resilience Countermeasures Report and the Crash Mitigation and Congestion Management Process, or CMCMP. I believe both of those are on your action items agenda for tonight in the early part of the meeting. The CAC voted unanimously to recommend that the TPO board accept both of these reports. We spent most of the June 3rd meeting focused on the tip, the subject of tonight's public hearing. The questions and discussion focused primarily on two areas: the projects in the vicinity of Hillsborough College and the I-275 capacity project from Hillsborough to Beers that you all are very familiar with. On the I-275 issue, CAC members secured confirmation that no funding is programmed at this time and that implementation is projected outside the TIP's target 5-year window, a decade or more into the future. There was extensive discussion on the role of the TIP. CAC members expressed their procedural concern that the TIP is intended to publish projects with committed funding and proposed implementation over the next 5 fiscal years. The Hillsborough to Beers capacity project does not satisfy these criteria. Therefore, the CAC passed a motion by a vote of 13-2 to remove the item. That would be 431821-3. Let me restate. 431821-3, that's the FPN number. I-275 from Hillsborough to Beers from the FY 27 to 31 tip. And actually, although the recorded vote was 13-2, the actual vote was 14-2 because one of the members reported almost immediately after the vote count that he had voted the wrong way. So all but one member voted to remove the item. I made this motion and defined it as procedural in nature, which is to say one might vote to strike the project on procedural grounds, a failure to meet funding and the 5-year implementation criteria, while supporting the project in substance. And in fact, at least 2 of the members on the committee said they were doing exactly that. They supported the project, but not the procedural misstep. If stricken from the tip, the project would continue to occupy a position on both the LOP, or the, the TPO priority list, and the LRTP. It would not be lost, and transparency would be maintained. Following action on this motion, the CAC further discussed the tip and the years of history we have written as a community in debates over transportation policy. Members noted frustrations with the tip in substance and process, as well as the disconnect between community-supported projects and projects that are actually included in the tip. A motion was made to recommend the TPO board approve the tip as amended, that amendment again being the striking of the Hillsborough to Beers section. That motion, however, failed by a vote of 5-10. This marks the first time in my 9 years of experience on the CAC that the committee has recommended rejection of the entire tip. Staff has actually confirmed that they reported as well, or did a little study of their own going back 10 years and found no evidence of this. The CAC report in your agenda package is consistent with my comments to this point. What follows now is my attempt as chair to communicate the thoughts informing these 2 tip-related votes. First, the vote to recommend removal of the Hillsborough to Beers capacity project. I'll just refer to it as the project going forward. This one's pretty easy. The motion was surgical and procedural in nature. The tip is a work plan of federally funded transportation projects over the next 5 years. Since the project is neither funded nor scheduled for implementation within that time frame, it does not belong in the tip. That's pretty black and white, and 14 of our members agreed, thus the removal recommendation. The second vote was more complex and frankly unexpected for me, also more concerning. As chair, it was concerning, and I hope to you as well as the appointing authorities. 10 of 15 CAC members voted not to recommend approval of the tip, rejecting the entire document. One might ask why. It hasn't happened in 10 years, and I suspect it's been much longer. The CAC is essentially a well-informed focus group of your fellow citizens and in some cases your constituents. Many of us have followed the evolution of the MPO, now TPO, for a decade or more. There is a treasure trove of experience, institutional history, and subject matter expertise represented among our ranks. That said, the vote of 10 members to reject the tip was not so much a rejection of projects, at least of all projects, as it was a rejection of the process bringing those projects to us, and a rejection of the way in which this board absorbs our recommendations. The comments made during discussion reflected frustration born of the belief that this board does not respect our work and the knowledge that our recommendations are routinely dismissed. One TPO board member thinks so little of our contributions that they have failed to appoint a representative and apparently don't intend to do so. Frequently, the board delivers a de facto vote of no confidence to the CAC, and the CAC has noticed. This month, the CAC responded in kind. My take is this was a protest vote. Will you do anything about it? I hope so. Step one might be to spend some time talking to your appointees, assuming you have one. And remember, we are all your appointees. Step two might be to view the June 3 CAC meeting on YouTube. I'm sure staff can get you to the appropriate timestamp. I've tried to provide fair context, but there's no substitute for the real thing. Finally, I posed a question to Google AI yesterday. What is the significance of the CAC? I thought that might be the kind of question that your layman who would be interested in appointment to the CAC might ask. This is what comes back, and this is about the TPO in Hillsborough County, the CAC. The CAC bridges the gap between everyday residents and decision makers on the TPO. It ensures that community voices directly shape the county's transportation policies, project priorities, and funding allocations. That may be the goal, but it is not the perceived reality. Tonight, community voices on the CAC are telling you, asking you, to strike the Hillsborough to Beers capacity project from the TIP. To do that, you need only follow your own rules. No funding, no 5-year window, no TIP. The alternative is to violate your rules and ignore the advice of your advisory committee. That concludes my report. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to stand for them.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Board members, other questions for Mr. Fernandez? Seeing none, thank you for your report.
All right, thank you.
We have Harmony McGee from our TPO staff.
Good evening, Harmony McGee, TPO staff. Regarding today's action items, the Technical Advisory Committee and the Livable Roadways Committee recommended that the TPO board accept the crash mitigation and congestion management process. Discussion at the Technical Advisory Committee included the sources used for speed data, with TPO staff clarifying that multiple data sources were incorporated into the analysis. Additional questions focused on the threshold used to identify hotspot corridors, the timing of congestion measurements, and how the findings would be translated into action. TPO staff explained that the purpose of the study is to identify crash and congestion hotspots, which are then overlaid with the project pipeline to help identify potential study areas and inform future project prioritization. It was also asked whether the Tampa-Hillsborough Expressway Authority's work program had been considered. Staff noted it had not been incorporated but could be included in future efforts. Livable Roadways Committee members inquired about tracking congestion over time. Staff explained that while some efforts of the TPO date back to 2014, the CMCMP monitoring effort is relatively new and will serve as an ongoing tracking mechanism moving forward. Questions were also raised about whether the removal of traffic signals had been considered and whether they could be replaced with other alternatives. Staff clarified that these considerations are part of the broader toolbox of potential strategies. The Technical Advisory Committee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee also recommended that the TPO board accept the Local Roadway Resilience Countermeasures report. Discussion at the Technical Advisory Committee included considerations related to trees and ongoing maintenance requirements associated with some of the identified countermeasures. The Technical Advisory Committee, Livable Roadways Committee, and Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee further recommended that the TPO board approve the fiscal year 2027 to 2031 Transportation Improvement Program. At the Technical Advisory Committee meeting, questions were raised regarding whether projects had been delayed to accommodate new projects in the vicinity of Hillsborough Community College. TPO staff clarified that the projects in question originated from FDOT's central office and did not affect the scheduling of other projects. It was also asked how project schedule changes initiated by Tampa International Airport would be handled. Staff explained that such changes would be incorporated into the following year's TIP update. Livable Roadways Committee members raised similar questions regarding projects near Hillsborough Community College and additionally voted to request that a representative from FDOT attend a future committee meeting to explain how its central office prioritizes projects and how decisions regarding other state programming are made. We also received public comments through social media. The Sarasota Mobility Alliance commented on our repost of FDOT Central Florida's Know Your Stopping Distance posts, questioning data related to e-bike stopping distances compared to those of a semi-truck. Brenda Try tagged the TPO in a comment on X regarding property tax reform. Another community member also commented on X in support of light rail. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. Board members, are there questions for Ms. McGee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to review the consent agenda? And if so, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. Councilmember Clendenin, seconded by Commissioner Bowles. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? No nays. Consent agenda is adopted. We move into action items. Action item A is crash mitigation and congestion management process. And Harry Walsh from our TPO staff will explain. Good evening.
Absolutely. Good evening. Good evening, TPO Board. Good evening, Mr. Chair. I'm here to present to you the crash mitigation and congestion management process update called CMCMP. So tonight I want to talk to you about what this is, what this isn't, talk about the hotspots that we've identified across congestion, safety, and resiliency, and then talk about a very high-level case study and then the toolbox of strategies that we've developed in this effort. So before we get to the CMCMP, what is a CMP? What's a congestion management process? So it is a federally required document for any MPO or TPO that serves a community with over 200,000 residents, which of course we have more than that here in Hillsborough County. And it asks you to look at all your roadways, identify a subset of those roadways, identify performance measures along those roadways, and then identify hotspots for congestion, and then do research. Look at other organizations, other MPOs, other TPOs, look at research organizations, and see what strategies have been effective for treating congestion. So I'm happy to have inherited such a great history at the Hillsborough TPO in safety work, and so we also included crash mitigation as a part of this to make it a crash mitigation and congestion management process, or CMCMP update. And we don't want this to just be a document that sits on a shelf. We want this to be something that can be living and breathing and useful to elected officials, to partner agencies, to members of the public. And so we're of course going to be posting this ultimate underlying tech memo online, but we also have a web map that we'll be updating. And ideally, I'm hoping in the future that we'll be able to have some sort of dashboard or something that's active that anyone can go onto our website and use. So here's the CMCMP network that we've identified. And there's going to be a lot of images in this, so I really encourage all of you to look at the underlying tech memo. There's a lot more maps and a lot more explanation of the data. But at a high level, we have about 5,500 centerline public road miles in our county. And this CMCMP just covers about 1,000 of them, so less than 20% of the total roadways. So why did we do that? Because we wanted to look at only the roadways that had above a certain volume of traffic. So anything that was below 5,000 average annual daily traffic, that's so low that it really wasn't going to register for safety issues or congestion issues. And also, we only wanted roadways that had consistent data that we could keep pulling from, that had a history behind it. We can look today, and then also as we continue to monitor in the future and use this thing that we're developing that will consistently have good data. So in the black on that map, you have your interstates, that's 132 miles of that 1,000. Then in the red, you have your principal and minor arterials, that's 263 miles. And then the majority of it is those blue roads, that's all the other roads, that's 614 miles of our area here. So the first lens that we used was congestion, and we found through research looking at other CMPs that other MPOs have produced and just general good practice across the industry that one measure of congestion really wasn't sufficient. And so we looked at 4 different aspects to hone in on what congestion is actually looking like on our roadways. So the first is percentage of time spent congested. And we iterated over what is the exact cutoff, what should be the metric that we use as a project team, and we settled on 50%, above 50% or more for percentage of time congested. The next is delay, and so we used vehicle hours of delay per mile as the measure for that, and we found 12 minutes to be the cutoff. And this isn't 12 minutes added to your entire trip time. This is 12 miles to get through a single mile segment, or the equivalent of 6 minutes to get through half a mile, if you're understanding. And we found just kind of an interesting fact. The highest was 42 minutes to get through a single mile section. That was part of I-4 at peak period, so that was fairly significant. Then the third was reliability. Can you predict how long it's going to take you to get through a part of our roadways? And we use the planning time index for that, so that tells you how how long is it going to take you to get through a segment of the roadway compared to free flow traffic? And we used 2 times, twice as long to get through as compared to free flow. And then the high end was about 5 times as slow. So if you expect it to take 10 minutes, it's going to take you 50 minutes. And we identified, taking all of them together, the extent, which is the 4th measure. And that's what you're seeing on the map here. And so we identified, of that 1,000 miles or so, 169 miles of congestion hotspots. So the next lens we went to was safety. And most of this data is from Signal 4, so that's a nice publicly available data source. We know that's going to keep going ahead in the future. And we considered other efforts have used just fatality and serious injury. We wanted to look at all types of crashes. So we looked at a 5-year period, so 2021 up until most recently available data. And we used the KABCO method of weighting, so fatalities are weighted much higher than just property damage only crashes. And so through that, we identified the segments that you see in red on that map as safety hotspots. And then FDOT also maintains a intersection map layer that we were able to use. And so that just looks at the intersections on their own and fixes some data problems that we often have to encounter. And so using that, we were able to identify the top intersections as well. And you'd probably expect to see the intersections along the congested segments, right? And generally you do see that. Those are those gray dots that you see there. But if you look to the east of the map, south of Plant City, you do see that there's like these 2 intersections that are floating out in space. So that's indicating that those intersections themselves are probably starting to experience some congestion, but it hasn't started affecting the roadways. But if population increases, if VMT increases, and those roadways stay exactly the same, you might start to expect to see some congestion like radiating out from those intersections. And so and also in South County as well, the same principle stands. And so with that, we identified 137 miles of safety hotspots. And then the third lens, which was not a major part of the study, but we did include it, was resiliency. And so we looked at storm surge 1 foot, sea level rise 1 foot, and the 500-year floodplain. And really no surprises here. It's the areas that are along Tampa Bay, along the Hillsborough and Alafaya River. Those are most at risk for water-related issues, storm-related issues. We had 113 miles of resiliency hotspots. So now that we have these lenses, we took the 2 main ones that we were looking at, congestion and safety, and combined them. So let's see where, if we just look at anything and everything that's a problem on our roadways, what do we identify as hotspots? So we identified the majority of I-75, 275, and I-4 as issues, the majority of Hillsborough Ave, Dale Mabry, Nebraska Ave, and the area near USF. There also were several South County roadways that we identified, including a lot of intersections with Lithia Pinecrest, especially Bloomingdale Ave really lit up when we looked at this holistically. And then that's kind of looking at a broad view, right, including either or. It's either a safety or a congestion issue. And you expect, we generally know that the worst crashes happen at high speeds. So if you have congestion, you generally are not going to have a lot of fatalities or serious injury. And vice versa, where you're starting to see those fatalities and serious injuries, you probably don't have congestion. That generally holds true if I flip back and forth between this. You see in this more conservative hotspot map that we're looking at here, where it has to be both a congestion and a safety hotspot, it's much fewer, smaller selection of the roadways. And so looking at that, it's interesting what pops out. So we see for continuous segments, Hillsborough Ave, I-275, and Dale Mabry have both of these types of issues. And other areas of note, as I mentioned before, are Bloomingdale Ave and then also US 301 in South County. And if you look, you see a lot of like little separated intersections. And so we did identify through this effort that intersections and not necessarily the entire roadway segments or entire roadways are often the start of the problem. So I won't keep this up for too long. This will be in the underlying report, but this is an unranked list of those combined top hotspots here. So you see a lot of usual suspects, I-75, Selman, Veterans Expressway, I-4, and also the extents, the Frubman too. So now that we've identified the problem areas, we know that our partner agencies are also looking at this, and you're already aware of many of these problems. And so we looked at Tampa's CIP, Hillsborough County CIP, FDOT's work plan, as well as our own TIP, to look at what projects are already in the works, what are planned in the near future. And then we took that and overlaid it with what are the hotspots that we've identified to see where are the gaps. And so the black areas on that map on the right are the areas that already have projects programmed from at least one of these. The red areas are the ones that don't, with one exception I'll note. So zooming in a bit, you see we overlaid all of these projects, and then most of the hotspots we found do have projects. People are aware of where the problem areas are, generally speaking. Some of the gaps that we noted were parts of Hillsborough Ave. Many of the segments of Hillsborough Ave do have projects, but not basically the whole extent, which is what we identified, as well as the same thing for Dale Mabry. And I do mention the Selman Expressway here. I do want to note that we did not have the THEA work program initially. We do have that in the underlying document, so this map is slightly incorrect, but in the final document that'll be updated, because there's the South Selman Expressway capacity project that I'll defer to our representative for details. We also have Kennedy Ave, Bloomingdale Ave as mentioned before, and parts of Ybor as areas that have stood out. So this is really the map that I think is the biggest takeaway of this project, this effort. Here are the areas that we are recommending or saying that our partner agencies could look into or members of the public could look into for potential projects. So this is a great, obviously the tip is on everyone's mind tonight. This is a great example of how this is the inverse or a good complement to the tip. So this effort does not program or suggest any particular projects. It identifies where some of the problem areas are. We take a look at what projects are already going on, excuse me, and then we say, hey, here are some areas that maybe we should look into as a community. And so we don't want to just leave it there. We want to also offer some strategies. And so a large part of the report is the research we did on a strategies toolbox. And so we included a general strategies toolbox with 5 sections that we grouped many underlying strategies into. And we sorted them into these 5 tiers is what we ended up calling them. So the first is strategies to preserve the system. And the next is strategies to reduce person trips and vehicle miles traveled. The third is strategies to shift automobile trips to other modes. The fourth is strategies to improve roadway operations. And then finally, the fifth is strategies to add capacity. And this is just one of many of those strategies I've pulled out. And so this is traffic signal coordination and modernization under ITS and operations strategies. And you can see what are the predicted impacts on crashes and congestion, what's the scale, what are the general costs, we're not putting dollar amounts, but like the rough idea of what the cost might look like, and what's the implementation time frame. And then generally, I mentioned as kind of a complement to the tip, we're looking on a time scale of like 1 to 5 years for implementation and things that are generally lower in cost, so not giant capital projects that are going to take 30 or 40 years. We're looking on a shorter term for this exercise. And then we did a very, very high-level case study because the actual project identification is not really the point of this. But basically, this was the extent of the case study. We identified Hillsborough Avenue, and we selected North 56th Street to Dale Mabry Highway. And then potential strategies we thought were applicable to the issues there would be smart technologies, signal timing and coordination, and then safer pedestrian crossings. And we did this kind of in a vacuum as the project team, just seeing what does the data point us to, what does our research point us to. And we were really happy to hear basically the next day after we created this map from FDOT that they selected this segment as well as a little bit further east for phase 2 of their smart corridor project. And so they basically identified similar issues, and we'll be looking to install ITS and smart technologies along this roadway and extended. So that's nice to see a little bit of maybe verification from separate project teams. And so with that, the requested action is to accept the CMCMP update. We're hoping to do more updates in the future, maybe yearly as staff. With that, are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Board members, other questions? Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you so much for this. Is this vehicles only? Vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists? Like, what are you looking at with crash? That was unclear.
Yeah, well, it's any crash that happens on a roadway. So obviously, if it happens on a trail or something, it's not included. But we are looking at pedestrian, bike, non-motorized, motorized, and automobiles. Yeah, okay. Everything.
And you didn't have, I didn't see a breakout of those.
Not in this, but we do have that, and that's ultimately with Signal 4. So all of that is publicly available. We basically are using that data as is and then just mapping it onto our roadways, and that underlying data is there. So that's something that you can get in the report or just generally.
Thank you.
Board Member Slater.
Yeah. Similar question. I'd like to understand a little bit more of the crash. I mean, you identified the Selman Expressway, but we had 0 fatalities on the Selman Expressway last year. So I'm trying to figure out kind of where that correlation is in terms of the crashes. So, I just would like to understand a little bit more of how that calculation was made.
Sure.
And kind of where that fits and, pretty, and coincidentally, how much of the crashes were somewhat related to the congestion. Like, for instance, if congestion gets backed up, are we having little kind of fender benders, those types of things, which are a crash issue, but not necessarily a significant safety issue like we have on the pedestrian front?
Sure, absolutely. That's actually fairly direct to answer. So for safety, what we did is, well, obviously for congestion, we followed this. And then for safety, we were looking at the weighted, so the K, ABC, 0, all types of crashes across all modes along basically the entire roadway network that we were looking at. And then we identified, we normalized that per mile to try and figure out where exactly are kind of the biggest hot spots, not just looking at, because you're obviously going to see like on 275 is going to light right up and everything else is going to kind of fade into the background. So we normalized that a little bit. But if you actually see, if this is showing up on all of your screens as well, for safety hotspots, the Selman is not really lighting up. That's not what made it to that final measure there. It was more of the congestion, and the congestion is that method. So that's the only reason that the majority of the Selman showed up.
Absolutely, thank you. That was the reason for my question, because where it was showing up was a list where you combined safety and congestion. So I just wanted to make sure that I was seeing.
Absolutely, there's a small segment. County boundary to Kennedy is what we identified. So it's not the entire extent, it is a part of it. Yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Walsh? Oh, yes, Mr. Hall, Secretary Hall. There you go.
This is too fancy for me. First off, great job.
Oh, thank you.
You made a very complex presentation, very simple. So kudos to you. Just curious, do you know which section of I-4 that was 42 minutes for a mile?
I was expecting that about a few minutes ago. I was like, I wish I had that immediately ready, but we can get that to you.
No, I'm more just curious. I mean, it does not surprise me, and that's why we've had a focus on I-4 lately. So it doesn't surprise me, but was more just curious, which segment it was. So good job, just great job.
Thank you.
Other questions, board members? If not, Mr. Walsh, thank you very much. Board, is there a motion to accept the report?
Motion to accept the report.
Motion by Councilmember Clendenin, seconded by Board Member Gray. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? No nays. Thank you again, Mr. Walsh. The report is accepted. Next presentation concerns local roadway resilience countermeasures, and Lauren Brooks and Sharon Wright from HDR are here to explain. Oh, after Wade.
Yes, sir. Wade Reynolds, TPO staff, just here to introduce Sharon Wright, who is online with HDR to present the local roadway resilience countermeasures study and guidebook. And we're very thankful for this, given our flooding issues, both from storm surge and rainfall these last couple of years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
All right. Good evening, Chair Mayor Ross and board representatives. My name is Sharon Wright with HDR. I'm a resilience practice lead focused in Florida, but sit right here in Tampa Bay almost always with you. My background is in city planning and environmental science, and with several years developing sustainability and resiliency programs in the public sector as well. And I'm pleased to be able to present this local roadway resilience work to you today. And with that, if Christian can pull up the presentation. So real quick, why this study, why the local roadway resilience countermeasures study? It's building on several studies. Most of you, if not all of you, probably know because of your proactive communities like Hillsborough, Tampa, Pinellas, and the Tampa Bay region, as well as the Resilient Florida program coming along from the state. A lot of studies have been done on the vulnerabilities of our infrastructure, including our roadways. Those vulnerability assessments look at anything from water treatment plants to parks to these major roadways and evacuation routes. And so the TPO wanted to take this step along with some of the communities that are starting adaptation plans with this step they can look at some of the countermeasures to what these vulnerability assessments are finding. And most of the vulnerability assessments are focused on flooding and some on heat. And we wanted to look at how we could counter that on the local roadway network. And recognizing that the TPO does not implement resilience projects on their own, but this study is meant to support collaborations with your partners for resilience and funding strategies on your local roadway network. And what we're doing here today is not to approve any one solution for one project, but more to include this study as part of TPO's toolbox, similar to the previous presentation, giving you the tools to work with your partners for more resilient roadways. Next slide, please. And so, not based on these studies that I just mentioned that are existing, as well as coordination with stakeholders and staff, and of course what we've all experienced, the weather impacts for this countermeasure guidebook were focused on primarily on flooding, and that's driven, and the flooding that's driven by rainfall and by tidal influences, both of which are increasing in severity, as well as extreme heat, with the growing number of high temperature days that we have here each year. Next slide, please. And so we also use the studies because we can see what out there is vulnerable, and we know that there are a lot of vulnerable roadways. But we use the studies, and again, more input from stakeholders and staff to develop kind of a longer list of corridors that we might be able to use as case studies along with developing these countermeasure concepts. And that list was narrowed down to the 3 areas that you see here. And that provides us with some different geographies as well as different roadway types to use sort of as such as examples. Next slide, please. So what's in your package and what one of the major results of this study was, along with some backup, was the countermeasures guidebook. So through research, development, looking at in our own backyard at the roadways, countermeasures were compiled into this guidebook that includes the 3 corridors, as I just mentioned, as sort of as such as examples. The guidebook, it's important to note, has a range of solutions. Sometimes one solution will offer one solution will offer multiple benefits, and often these are more effective when they're applied as a suite of solutions, not just using one. So in your guidebook, you'll have these concepts and drawings. Next slide, please. Also in the guidebook, you'll have a diagnostic framework. The slide here is showing the rainfall diagnostic framework, and really what it is a set of questions and maybe some opportunities that can drive your initial momentum and collaboration for resilience considerations on your local roadway projects. Really thinking of leveraging this idea of resilience and coming up with countermeasures enables your tools to leverage it for sort of early and integrated approaches to design for roadway projects. The framework set out for each impact type, whether it was the rainfall one you see here, tidal, or heat, can be mixed and matched as well. These questions come up. We know that most projects don't only experience one impact, and they often have opportunities for multiple countermeasures. And so you have this diagnostic framework, you're asking questions, and then we come up from those questions, we have a suite of concepts or possible countermeasure solutions. So next slide, please. So here is an example of one of the solution pages in your guidebook that shows green infrastructure concepts, as well as photos, and sometimes it'll have drawings that give examples, mostly local, but sometimes maybe from other places as well, so you can see them in action. Next slide, please. This is another example for the heat. And we just want to show that, for heat strategies, trees are a big focus in the guidebook. They're not the only thing, but we know that trees are great multitaskers, whether it's holding on to some of our storm or floodwaters, as well as providing that shade for heat strategies. So there's a lot of discussion here with built-out communities like we have. There's some challenges and some great concepts to be thinking about applying. And we also talk about shade structures and some other things as an example for heat mitigation strategies. And then the next slide is just one of the 3 corridors that we mentioned, if you'll go to that, yep. so in the 78th Street area. And so along here, with the case studies, we sort of apply some of these countermeasure concepts to those to see what might work. And here you'll see for these examples, we're kind of looking at the findings of what some of the main drivers of flooding are, and then what some possible countermeasures could be. And here the example was even a policy, not an actual construction project, that could expand pervious surface in the area. That's probably true for a lot of places, but that could have been a driver for this area. And so this is just a little bit abbreviated. We've had great presentations with the committees, and I've appreciated the questions and input that will be incorporated into this. And so we're just here today to share this information with you all, the board, and hope that you consider recommending the study as another tool in your toolbox. And this will help TPO include resilient design elements in your local roadway projects. And I want to thank you for your time, and happy to answer questions or clarify anything.
Keeps turning off. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Board members, are there questions? Board member,
yes.
Council Member Young.
Not necessarily a question, just a comment. I was actually very happy to see this report. I really enjoy seeing, the one would not think that there's a relationship between green infrastructure and trees and transportation, but there actually is is a really big relationship. And so to see, us talking about the green, infrastructure concepts and, talking about the trees, which is something that we've spoken about on council, including on trees as part of your infrastructure. So I was actually very happy to see this report, and I just want to say a very good job.
Thank you. Board members, are there questions for Ms. Brooks? Board Member Gray.
Thank you. My question is, it's in line with Mr. Slater. When we look at those hot spots, I guess I'm talking to the screen, well, what about Apollo Beach? Because not only we have a school that's right in the flood zone, but that entire area goes underwater. Shell Point Road, so if you go south, you're looking at a huge amount of territory that even a steady rain will quickly fill up that area. Just curious as to why that's not included in the study. Thank you.
Ms. Brooks?
The guidebook, I think there was a whole list, and I don't have that handy, what started as a list, but this can apply to the whole service area for the TPO. These countermeasures are concepts and can be pieced together from different solutions in different areas. So some of these things will apply to that area, I'm sure. And again, the 3 areas chosen were just such as based on looking at some of the vulnerability and assessment. We're not lacking in areas that are vulnerable to look for solutions for. So again, these were just such as, and these countermeasures can be applied anywhere where you want to take what makes sense from this guidebook to your area and build on that.
Well, I thank you for looking into this. It's very, very helpful. Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Brooks? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Brooks. Board, is there a motion to accept the report?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clendenin, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. The report is accepted. Thank you. Any other business to come before the board before we adjourn and reconvene at the TIP hearing?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Clendenin, seconded by Commissioner Bowles. All those in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Opposed? We will stand adjourned. We will now reconvene. I'll call to order the public hearing concerning the Transportation Improvement Program. We do need another roll call vote. Ms. Desiano, would you please help us out with that?
Ross?
Here.
Wostel?
Here.
Miller is excused. Myers?
Here.
Cohen?
Here.
Bowles?
Here.
Clendenin?
Here.
Hurtak?
Here.
Young?
Here.
Kilton?
Here.
Gray?
Here.
Klug?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Slater?
Here.
King? Joseph?
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Desiano. First action item is the FY 27 through 31 Transportation Improvement Program. And our presentation tonight will be given by Elizabeth Watkins from our TPO staff. Good evening.
Good evening, TPO Board. Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. I'm here today to present to you the fiscal year 27-31 Transportation Improvement Program. So what exactly is this thing that we affectionately call the TIP? Well, it's a program of federally funded and regionally significant projects that we expect to advance at some stage of development through 2031. We do this because we're required by both federal and state law with the intention of bringing added visibility to these important projects. There are many things that are required for adoption. The first is extensive public outreach. So I'm really proud to share the great work of the team of putting out road signs, sending over 3,000 postcards, legal ads, meetings, social media. We really do our best to get the word out. We do extensive coordination with all of our partners, but particularly FDOT and HART, as they are designated recipients of formula federal funds, and they really help us craft this transportation improvement program. We screen all of the projects to ensure that there's consistency with the long-range transportation plan. And one way that this, the TIP is different than your list of priority projects is it's not a wish list. These are projects that are at some stage of its development. So I'll go over just a few highlights. The program this year has about 180 projects totaling $2.5 billion, and it's multimodal in every aspect. While the lion's share of the funds are through the traditional highway program, that includes trail projects, signals, safety projects. There's money for transit, the port, and the airport as well. So when you slice and dice those 180 projects, this graph is just showing you that the vast majority of the projects in this program are those that are maintaining the system we have today. So many resurfacing projects, bridge repairs, money for HART to continue to keep their fleet up to good standard. When you look at the TIP from a financial perspective, that $2.5 billion of investment, you'll see that about half go to what we consider major projects, being interchange modifications, widenings, and that's no surprise to us because those are big ticket complex projects that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. But there are funds applied to all types of projects within this program. Then when you look at it from the funds that the TPO board has primary discretion and direction over, you can see a little bit of a shift to many different types of projects given the pot is a little bit smaller, so to really spread that and get as many investments out and built for our community as possible. So I won't go through all 180 projects, but a few that I wanted to bring to your attention in this presentation. There are a few major projects. One, of course, is the West Shore Interchange, which recently started construction in the early stages this year. This will be a transformational project, not only modifying the interchange, but adding the trail and the cross-through streets in the West Shore area. Our partners at the Turnpike are continuing to advance their Suncoast Widening project, and the first segment of that in Hillsborough County from Van Dyke to Lutz Lake Fern will start construction in fiscal year 2031. And lastly, the I-4 express lanes, which will be one in each direction in the median from I-75 to Polk Parkway. That is full steam ahead with construction planned to be let sometime in 2028. There are some new projects in the TIP around the Hillsborough College Dale Mabry campus. There are 6 that total about $23 million. These are new projects, but they did not displace any existing projects in the pipeline. As the plans for the Hillsborough College site and potential Rays Stadium are evolving, so are the actual project details. So DOT is looking very closely at those, and the details that we have available are their intention to widen and add 1 lane in each direction on Air Cargo Road, and then this segment of Tampa Bay Boulevard. Also, there are plans to add a signal at Steinbrenner and Dale Mabry. I also thought maybe you'd be interested on what we're moving dirt on next year. So within the city of Tampa, near Busch Gardens and Adventure Island. There will be an intersection improvement at Annie Street and 30th. Down on Adamo Drive at 34th Street, and going from concrete to asphalt, given the high industrial area and the high prevalence of heavy trucks. A repaving on Hillsborough Avenue in the central part of Tampa from Park Road to Central Avenue. And then near the University of Tampa, a traffic operations improvement at Kennedy Boulevard at Plant Avenue. Then looking out into the unincorporated part of the county, lots of investment in resurfacing, both on MLK and US 92. DOT is also continuing to advance their I-4 westbound auxiliary lane to help drivers get on and get off of I-4 in that segment, as well as near the Brandon area, an intersection improvement and sidewalk at State Route 60 and US 301. Hillsborough County is working to implement a signal at Mango Road at Old Hillsborough Avenue near Thenonasassa, and then down in South County near the new Moffitt Center at South Shore, continuing to install intersection improvements at State Route 674 and College Avenue. And then out in Plant City, both middle schools will have sidewalks, which will be a great benefit to the students. I also wanted to bring to your attention the widening from I-275 from Hillsborough to Bierce is in the tip, but as you can see here, there is no money programmed through 2031. And this is consistent with what DOT has shown in their long-range plans, with design beginning sometime in 2035 to 2040, and then construction further out. Secretary Hall has also been very consistent in his message about this project not moving forward in the near future. TPO staff's recommendation will be to keep this project in the tip, and while we acknowledge that it is a little unusual to have an unfunded project in the tip, we feel that it should remain because it is one of your stated priorities in your list of priority projects, and it just gives added transparency to see how much money is actually programmed to advance this project. So we're really at the finish line, looking for your action tonight to adopt the tip. Looking forward to hearing public comment and your discussion, and I'll be ready to answer any questions, but the recommended action before you is to approve the tip by roll call vote.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. We will have you come back to the podium for questions after public comment. So, Ms. McGee, would you come to the podium, please, and read advanced public comments for us? Welcome back.
Thank you. Public comments regarding the fiscal year 2027 to 2031 Transportation Improvement Program were received via email and on social media. The public was also given the option to call and leave a voice message, though none were received. Keith Wagner emailed in support of constructing a noise and safety wall along the I-275 corridor between Hillsborough Avenue and Sly Avenue. He cited incidents in which vehicles left the interstate and entered his neighbor's backyard, and provided photos that are included in your packet. While expressing a preference not to widen the highway to accommodate the improvement, he stated that if state policy requires a widening in order to construct a safety wall, that he would support moving forward with the widening to allow the barrier to be built and help reduce safety concerns and noise impacts. Another community member submitted 3 articles included in your packet outlining concerns that highway widening projects are not an effective long-term solution for reducing traffic congestion. We also received a comment from the Sunshine Citizens Facebook group with the following recommendations. Remove the widening of I-275 from north of Hillsborough Avenue to Beers Avenue from the Transportation Improvement Program. Do not implement toll lanes on the Hillsborough County segment of I-275 unless the Florida Department of Transportation and the TPO first hold a public hearing identifying which portions of I-275 would be tolled. And they requested also to not approve the I-4 westbound auxiliary lane project from east of Bethlehem Road to west of Branch Forbes Road, or the project to add lanes and reconstruct I-4 from I-75 to west of Polk Parkway until completion of the county's I-4 urban expansion area study. citing concerns about proposed highway-oriented development patterns along the I-4 corridor. On X, Amanda Brown commented on the agenda formatting, requesting that the agency use the same agenda system as the county for easier accessibility on mobile devices moving forward. This concludes my report.
Thank you, board members. Any questions for Ms. McGee? Okay, thank you. If not, we'll move into public comment. We do have several people signed up. Rick Fernandez, you are recognized, sir. And Ms. Deciano, each speaker has 3 minutes.
Good evening again. My name's Rick Fernandez, president of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. I'm appearing in my representative capacity tonight. I incorporate by reference the CAC Chair's report given at the top of the meeting and stand now asking you to strike the I-275 capacity project Hillsborough to Beers from the tip. That's item number 431-821-3. I'll spare you the arguments grounded in community opposition and focus instead on procedure. Reading from the tip package provided in your agenda materials, the question is asked, what is the tip? A 5-year work plan of federally funded transportation projects over the next 5 years. The LRTP describes transportation vision and projects over the next 20 years. The tip brings the LRTP to life in 5-year increments. This project is neither funded nor does it have a 5-year implementation window. On the contrary, as you've already heard, implementation is projected out over a decade, well past 2035. Its presence in the tip tonight is an anomaly that is within your power to correct. Please note, the Hillsborough to Beers segment has never been a standalone item in the tip until its unexplained appearance there this year. How did it get there? By whose order? By what authority? I hope someone asks those questions tonight. It has been on the TPO priority list, or the LOP. That's where it's been found. Whatever changes have been made in 2021 or 2024, the project has been in the priority list, not the tip. That said, with no funding and implementation much more than 5 years out, tip inclusion criteria have not been met. Nothing supports moving the project from the priority list to the tip. If someone is concerned about transparency or the project being lost or forgotten, such concern is misplaced. It lives in both the LRTP and the priority list, regardless of what you do tonight. In closing, NASA predicts humanity will have a semi-permanent crewed presence on the moon in 2032. Sometime after 2035, FDOT predicts they will start construction of 2 lanes widening I-275 north of Hillsborough at a cost projected at $400 million. I find that contrast embarrassing and depressing. FDOT has led us into a ditch. They keep widening and lengthening that ditch. This board keeps handing them the shovels, the jackhammers, and the pile drivers, all of which shake our homes. That's on all of you and your predecessor board members. You can begin changing that course tonight. I need 1 motion, I need a second, and I need 8 votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Chris Vella.
Good evening again. Chris Vella, 33605, Tampa. In 24 years, will some of you all be able to drive? Will you still be living here? Will your nephews, nieces, or grandchildren live here? Do you think a highway project that will not be completed by 2050 will matter to these folks? In 24 years, my city's built a world-class riverwalk, a new downtown museum, Water Street, Encore, Midtown, a new airside terminal, a streetcar extension. We saw a 100-acre expansion of our port terminals. We built hundreds of CIP projects and modernized the desal plant, which kept us alive during this drought. In 24 years, FDOT will just complete a 5-mile-long project. The TPO actually saw this project 12 years earlier in 2014, and by 2050, it will be 36 years old, outdated. Let's jump into the areas of the tip where the public still gets the short end. In my committee, FDOT will not commit saying whether I-275 will be tolled. We are talking about 16 miles through Hillsborough County being told after asking $2 billion worth of taxpayer dollars to build these lanes. Do you know that 24 years ago the price of gas in Florida was $1.36? Do you know what it is now? Let's talk about I-4. Are you aware that some of your constituents are attending a I-4 urban expansion area study tonight, literally right now? Or were you aware that FDOT wants to fund 2 highways in a tip going through this area while the community is still getting feedback from the county? Both the Plant City and Osprey Observer have noted public pushback to sprawl around I-4. Are you prepared to tell these communities that you approve a highway widening through this area before the study is completed? Why are you allowing FDOT's needs to outweigh the communities when they have no money? Do you think it's fair that after 10 years, FDOT cannot tell you whether these roads will be tolled? Do you think building more lanes on I-4 would not affect the rural character of your constituents that want to maintain? Is it fair that you want to lock neighborhoods around I-275 under more construction until 2050? Take these recommendations, because right now it just seems like FDOT's running the show. Remove project number 431821-3, I-275 north of Hillsborough to Barris from the tip. And unless FDOT and the TPO create a series of planned public hearings on I-275 tolling, demand no toll lanes for the foreseeable future of the Hillsborough County Lee Ward segment of I-275. And then I would just remove the I-4 projects going through the area that you guys are doing the study. Just wait till you get the community feedback and then respond. And I know there's some comments about getting a match, but really, you guys are the politicians. You need to find a match. It's not going to fall in your lap. It's your job to seek ownership and to find that match. All I keep on hearing are straw man arguments, but no solutions. And before I end, I just found out that I have asthma, and my doctor thinks it's environmental because I live next to the downtown interchange. So we're getting really impacted badly. Thanks.
Michael Marino. Michael Marino. Oh, here we go.
Good evening. I'm Michael Marino, Executive Director of the West Shore Alliance. Historically, we've supported the TIP to advance the West Shore interchange and related street-level improvements. The thing for West Shore is that there needs to be all forms of transportation for West Shore: better roads, more transit, and safer pedestrian facilities. So the need for the pedestrian facilities is why we're speaking tonight specifically to the 6 projects that are proposed by Hillsborough College. Elements of those projects are in our West Shore Transportation Action Plan from 2018, the West Tampa Multimodal Plan, or previous TPO walk-bike plans. We do traffic counts as part of our transportation planning. So in 2023, we did traffic counts at Dale Mabry and Boy Scout Columbus and Tampa Bay Boulevard, as you can see from the orange during the creamsicle game against the Lions. So these 2 intersections had over 31,000 pedestrians for that game. And if you look at the top picture here, I circled those people are making a left. The cars are making a left into people crossing the street. And then down here, basically the only thing stopping, a major tragedy is TPD and that strategically placed left turn sign or right turn sign. The thing is about that corridor, that Dale Mabry corridor, is that we've kind of accepted for the past 50 years that this is a function of going to games, that this road has been built for this purpose, and then we kind of forget that 60,000 people have to somehow walk to the game. And if you think about it, you can look on Google Earth. My first Bucks game, 1991, I basically crossed the exact same intersections that my daughter crossed going to the Stadium Series game a few months ago. And so some of what has been proposed will help that make these changes. And they're, like I said, they're long overdue, 1991 to 2026, with or without a raised ballpark. There's new apartments on Boy Scout. St. Joseph's expanding towards Himes Avenue with their partnership with Northwestern University. And there's going to be interstate construction that sends more cars down Dale Mabry. So we shouldn't wait for potential of a tragedy here or to make these safer intersections. So we hope they can support these additional projects and make the Dale Mabry corridor safe for all users. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marino. Dana Lazarus. Is James Pullen here? Would you please come up also? Good evening. We don't start your time just yet. Mr. Pullen, you're going to donate your 3 minutes to Ms. Lazarus?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You do understand that that will forfeit your ability to talk at this meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you. All right. Ms. Lazarus, you are recognized.
Real quick, I'm going to have something to show on this.
Okay. Well, we'll give you a second to get that set up so you don't start the clock.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Hello, TPO board. My name is Dana Lazarus. I'm an urban planner. I live in the East Tampa Ybor area, 33605. I'm also a member of your Citizens Advisory Committee. I've sat on the CAC for on and off for about 9 years. So for the first time in 10 years, I asked Sarah, TPO staff, if a CAC has ever rejected a tip outright, and they have not. So keep in mind, these last 10 years were the most controversial years of the tip. And for the first time, the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization's Citizens Advisory Committee voted to reject this transportation improvement program outright for not representing the wants and needs of this county, and ultimately for being, in my opinion, a sham process. The primary advisory committee of this board, the CAC, one of the few committees mandated by the federal government, voted that you do not approve this document as it is written. I've been on this committee on and off for 9 years. Normally, we tinker with it, we make thoughtful motions, we do our research, and we make suggestions on how to improve the tip. I myself have voted yes on tips that I didn't love in the past, but not this year. To be clear, as vice chair of this committee, I did reject the tip for its content, not just symbolically. There are a ton of highway and major roadway widening projects in this tip. There are 11 widening projects, including descriptions like widen, add lanes, add auxiliary lanes, add through lanes. Of those, 10 are labeled SIS, aka Strategic Intermodal System, and of those, 8 seem to be highway widening, including 2 TBX, also known as TB Next, segments, to the tune of over $1 billion. I would have made motions to remove any of these projects, as the CAC has done in the past, except that all of these projects, every last one of them, by some coincidence, had some smaller amount of funding scheduled for preliminary engineering, which according to state statute means they're all past the point of no return. So I feel like I've realized something insidious about how these projects work. Is FDOT allocating preliminary engineering money just so the community by law can't stop these projects? I did some calculations before coming before you today to explain what I mean. I added all PE funding, preliminary engineering funding, for these 11 major roadway projects, and it came out to $28 million. I then added all the total funds for these 11 projects, and it came out to $1,413 million. So divide 28 million by 1.413 billion, and you get 1.98%. Preliminary engineering funds represent less than 2% of total project funds in this tip. Yet because they've been allocated, we're told we have no choice but to spend the billions on the rest of the projects instead of rejecting it based on community need and vision. I did another calculation you all should hear. I added all the miles represented by those $1.4 billion for those 11 projects. I added the miles, and it's 41.651 miles. So easy calculation, 1,413,000,000 divided by 41.651 miles is $33,924,756 per mile. That's not even including the unprogrammed money for design build for the project widening I-275 less than 7 miles from Hillsborough to Bears, which I've seen costs of between $400 million and $800 million total for that project. After years of making thoughtful amendments to the tip and voting yes on the final tip, because I had some amount of faith in the system and the process, holding out hope each time that you all, the TPO board, would listen to us and accept those amendments, I realized that this process is, for lack of a more professional term, rigged. This process is not in the spirit of the Federal Aid Act that established MPOs and TPOs in 1962. When that act was passed, it was so that the local people would have a say over how federal funding would be spent. Even when this board does listen to data and the community and removes projects like in 2021, those changes get rolled back, like the 275 project from Hillsborough to Bears, thanks to Commissioner Wastel and several more of you up there. Because of these projects, which represent a massive proportion of funds in this TIP and that lock us into billions in future maintenance costs, as you all saw that tall red bar on the bar graph of spending in this TIP, I believe this is a bad TIP. Furthermore, I believe that nothing we try to do or say as a Citizens Advisory Committee will change that, and that we are therefore not properly collaborating on local federally funded projects. You may be asking yourself, why is the CAC against highway widening? I urge you to look at the most recent Dangerous by Design report that was recently published. Tampa Bay remains at number 8 out of the top 10 most dangerous metros in the United States due to the investment that we put into roadway projects and the lack of investment that we put into all other multimodal projects. Meanwhile, Miami has fallen down to number 18 and Orlando has made the list of improving metros. So Tampa Bay really stands out as getting worse, and if you follow the money, you can see why. Thank you.
Keith Wagner.
Good evening, board members. My name is Keith Wagner, and I live in Old Seminole Heights neighborhood. My property sits directly behind the I-275 exit off-ramp between Hillsborough and Sly Avenue. I'm here tonight because my neighborhood is facing a severe public safety crisis. Vehicles are repeatedly losing control on the off-ramp, crashing off the interstate, and breaching our neighborhood backyards. Staff members Elizabeth Watkins and Cheryl Wilkening have already placed my formal email and photos of the most recent accident into your meeting packets. I urge you to look at the photos right now. What you see is a massive vehicle that crashed in a residential backyard on May 3rd. Fortunately, my 3-year-old border collie puppy was not in the backyard at the time of the crash. While this board has been locked in a standstill over highway widening, our physical safety is being completely ignored. Holding out for a perfect political compromise leaves my home and my neighbors entirely unprotected from errant vehicles. If state policy dictates that the only way to get a heavy-duty concrete barrier wall built to shield our homes is to approve the widening project, then I am asking you to stop the gridlock, fund the project, and build the wall immediately. We cannot wait another 10 years for basic physical safety in our own backyard. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. That concludes public comment. Ms. Watkins, would you please come back to the podium? So, board, if we can keep this somewhat organized, if we have questions first, and then we'll have discussion and debate or after that. But if there are questions for Ms. Watkins, now would be the time. Are there questions for Ms. Watkins?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Clendenin.
Ms. Watkins, in my briefing, and of course what we heard in public comment, is this TIP is normally used for projects that have been funded, that are anticipated funding within 5 years. Have we ever had a project in the TIP that met did not meet that requirement?
Yes, there have been some, and in this current TIP, there's actually another one, the I-75 at Gibsonton Drive, Diverging Diamond. That's also in there, unprogrammed, I think maybe because it's part of the SIS. So it's not unusual to have that.
So what is the purpose of, if the TIP is as defined by programs that are anticipated funding within the 5 years, what's the purpose, what public purpose does it serve having these programs in our TIP?
I think one of the values of it is so that anyone could look it up and see $0. That's better than a promise or a long-range plan. This is a work program on dollars allocated, so having the 0 does communicate some valuable information.
But wouldn't that be in the long-term plan as well, the 20-year plan?
The long-range plan isn't a programming or a budgeting document, so we don't have the near term, from now to 2031. The long-range plans is more high level.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hurtak.
So just to follow on with that, then why don't we have all of the LRTP project? I mean, because if you're going to go ahead and show $0, why don't we just do that for all of them?
That's a fair question. Secretary Hall.
Yeah, listen, so the line item, that line item in the TIP document could be removed with no impact to the project. A lot of times the choice to include, and this really is a choice of the MPOs, the choice to include a project like that is if it had previous year funding that had been either expended and it wasn't completed, which that project has money in previous years that's been expended, but was not constructed. And so a lot of times you may see a TPO or MPO show, hey, this is, money was spent on this project, it was not completed, there's nothing currently funded on it to show that that transaction occurred in the past. Gibsonton and I-275 north of Hillsborough both fall in that category. There was funding spent. Currently, it's zero funding funded. There's no funding moving forward currently allocated. You could remove it from the tip. Like, this is where I think a lot of people just really lose procedurally how this all works. Removing it from the tip doesn't do anything to the project.
Yeah.
It just strikes it from this document that it's not shown anymore, the past funding.
And that, I think that's what we're just trying to understand is if it, so, but we heard from the public tonight that there are other projects that are not in the TIP that have had money allocated to them for like PD&E.
Yeah, so the PD&E allocation, the funding, if the PD&E was completed, then that can be removed from the TIP because that phase is completed. The existing funding on Gibsonton and 275 north of Hillsborough was design funding, but it was not fully designed. So that phase has not been completed. That's what I'm getting at. So it's an open phase. It's showing that there's an open phase. There's been money spent. It was not finished. And like I said, procedurally, just so you know, procedurally from the DOT, whether it's there or it's not there, we don't care. But that line item doesn't make any impact for us because I have no funding on that in the next 5 years. So whether it's there or it's not there.
So I guess then the other question, because I'm just trying to figure out where all these projects should go. So are there any projects that are not in the TIP that have that sort of funding? Where they've already done some sort of design or?
There shouldn't be.
Okay, thank you.
Not saying that there's not, but there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Councilmember Clendenin? Yep. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a quick follow-up question. So there was a statement that was made that this project was bifurcated somehow, that it was a bigger project and now it's a piece of project. And how did this get into the TIP for this year? Could you explain some of that for us?
Yeah, or Johnny, could you help me with that one?
Thank you, Councilman. I'd be happy to explain. This project, dating back 5 years ago and beyond, was originally part of a longer segment extending from about the DTI north up to Bears. In 2021, by action of this board, a motion was made to divide it into two different segments. So one, from DTI to Hillsborough, was already funded for design. That project is moving forward and for all intents and purposes is done. The segment that some of the public commenters have discussed this evening, Hillsborough north to Bears, now is a standalone. There was funding for the longer segment to design just the first half. And what DOT has told us is that some of that design work was put toward the Hillsborough to Bears segment. It's now appearing in the TIP as a standalone for the very first time. But previously it was, it appeared, but it was longer.
How did it magically appear in this TIP?
Well, for public transparency purposes, I think what Secretary Hall was trying to say is the TIP is now showing that some design work has been complete, but not all of it, certainly not all. There's about $50,000 that has been spent, and we're not expecting any more, at least for the next 5 years.
Was it a request from FDOT?
It was not a request. I think at their discretion, they chose to include it because FDOT, just like your TPO staff, several times a year, we get phone calls from the public, media, elected officials asking, what's the status of this project? For FDOT, they made the decision to show it is not funded over the next 5 years and included in the TIP, even though, that's not standard budgetary practice.
So, I just for clarification, because it was a question that was brought up. So it came into the TIP because it was submitted from the FDOT?
Yeah, this was purely last year in the TIP, and in between, people have consistently asked us that. We were actually accused of pulling a fast one and having funding somewhere else. So we basically said, here's the open book, there's nothing on the project.
Gotcha.
And so that's it. And it's like I'm saying, if today you want to strike that line item and say, hey, we appreciate you showing it, we don't care, that's fine. It was just purely so people could see there's nothing there. We don't have any funding there.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Gray.
So what would be the harm, if any, if we just took it right off of the TIP, remove it? Would there be any repercussions? I mean, if we made a motion to remove it, would that be an upsetting event, or?
No, I don't think there would be.
So
But it would be staff's recommendation to accept it as presented, but as Secretary Hall, no impacts to project delivery.
So I would like to make a motion, if I may, to take it off, remove it from the tip, if there's no objection.
There's Mr. Clark.
Mr. Chair, can I interject real briefly? Just to make sure, because I don't get pulled into the budgetary stuff on this, but just to make sure this is out there for consideration, because this conversation about this having sort of like $0 in this line, I think is what the Secretary said. Just to make sure we're compliant, the state statute, there is a sentence in the provision regarding the tip that says, the tip may include a project or project phase only if full funding can reasonably be anticipated to be available for the project or project phase within the time period contemplated for completion of the project or project phase. So just to the people who work on the numbers in this, just putting that out there to ensure that this, including it, would be compliant, because just as somebody who's a layperson with pretty much anything to do with numbers, if it's got straight zeros, I just want to make sure that there's a staff position that it complies with that section of state statute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. And so, Ms. Watkins, I realize we have a motion, but just to clarify for everybody, it seems from the previous discussion that this would apply to 2 projects currently in the TIP, not just this one, but the one at Big Bend and I-75 also. Is that correct? So we would, if using that legal rationale, this would apply to 2 items in the TIP, not one. Is that correct?
I believe the motion was just for that one project, but
Well, I know. I want to clarify this before.
yeah.
I mean, we do have a motion, but I want to make sure in light of the legal advice that the motion is crafted the way the motion maker wants it to be crafted based on correct information.
Yes. My understanding of that statute is the way it's presented follows the Code of Federal Regulations and U.S. Code. So I think that motion would be fine.
Secretary Hall.
And just to highlight, just so you know, the reason why I-75 Gibsonton is there is for similar purposes. Design was started and was not completed. And also that is a project that's often been discussed with Hillsborough County BOCC about pursuing a grant for. And one of the grant requirements is that it's identified in the TIP as a viable project. So like, if you want to look at them differently, you can. If you want to take them both out, you can't. Like it's the same thing. It doesn't impact the project. It just impacts the communication up. So if you want that to continue to be considered for a federal grant, you can leave it. If you would like to strike it just to be clean,
okay,
go for it.
I think that adds some clarity. So Board Member Gray, you have a motion on the floor to remove the 275.
Second.
And I have a second by Commissioner Myers. Discussion, Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you. I was just waiting for that. There's actually more than 2 items. There's another one on pages 138 and 139 of the TIP, which discusses guardrails. There might be others. It's very difficult. It's clear that this item was cherry-picked by the CAC, and that's why the Gibsonton one, that's literally 1 page below this item. So it would have been impossible for them to miss if they were truly going through and auditing the procedural claims that were discussed. That's not the role of the CAC. And you just said that there is harm to remove it then, because we're removing eligibility for grant consideration of these priority projects that we've picked, correct?
Yeah, so if we were to pursue a grant, if any of the projects that were removed were being considered for a grant, if we were to pursue a grant, we would come back and be asking the board for some kind of an action to show that they want this project to be viable for grant funding or whatever. So there'd be another action that would be needed.
And you find money all the time. I mean, you just found money for I-4 you were given. You found money for a road I've been trying to fund for 3.5 years in East Hillsborough. It's not even your road, and you just found money for all of these Del Mabry projects and Air Cargo Road projects. So you could we could remove this negligently. You could find money for the 275 project next week, and if we needed grant matching funds, well, then now we're at a negative because we need to come back and find a way to get it back on here. There's no harm, though, to leaving it, though, correct? But there is harm to remove it.
Yeah, the TIP document as it was presented is compliant.
Okay.
So like there are no laws, rules violated with the TIP as it's been presented to you.
Look, colleagues, this is one of those documents where not everybody's getting everything that they want. We're not here to target certain people's line items. We're not here to hurt advancing, moving forward public safety. What does 275 get, like a 200,000, 175,000 riders like a day on it? It's pretty high up there, right? Okay, it's depending on the segment. So for all of those reasons, I don't understand the issues at hand. I'm going to make a substitute motion to accept the TIP as was recommended by staff. That is my motion.
We have a substitute motion seconded by Mayor Kilton. We have a substitute motion by Commissioner Wastel to approve the TIP and is seconded by Mayor Kilton. Is there discussion on the substitute motion? Hold on a second. Dr. Wong.
May I? Thank you, board members. I am actually going to agree with the assertion of Commissioner Wastel, but for a different reason. I would say that there is no harm in leaving it in the TIP. However, there is also no harm in removing it from the TIP. If the federal government were to award us funding to move this project forward in an accelerated manner, it would still have to come before this board via a TIP amendment to bring it back. Funding change of greater than $2 million or 10% requires a TIP amendment, and so there would still be opportunity for this board to discuss it and the public to weigh in. If it were removed but funded, to add it back in, we would have this same public process once again.
Mayor Kilton.
Well, this is not a discussion, really, in my opinion, about whether or not to leave it on the TIP or to move it to LRTP. It's a discussion about overall transportation for our community at the end of the day, right? So, we could just have left things like they were, 100 years ago and still have dirt roads, right? But growth happens. Things move on over time. We talked about earlier what the impact was to I-4. Well, I don't have to have the stats to know. I drive it all the time. And you can pick your mile from County Line Road and Polk to downtown, Tampa, and figure out where that's congested any given day. So obviously, we know that there's a need for increased capacity. The stress that we have is trying to figure out how that works. Obviously, we need to have some transit involved and those types of things. But at the end of the day, we have two options. We can stop being awesome, or we can make sure that we meet the demands of our folks. And I feel very badly for the people that are right here in this community that are getting the most impacted by it. But at the end of the day, we all have to recognize that you have to get folks from North County, from East County, from South County, from St. Pete over into Tampa. And how are we going to do that? Okay, so are we going to get people out of their cars? Maybe some will. But at the end of the day, we have so many people moving here, and they have to get around. So to take this off is to say that that's not a reality. And so I don't agree with that. I think the reality is that we have to have more capacity in one way, shape, or form. That's a fact. And if I voted to remove it, then that would be dishonest for me. And that's why I seconded our commissioner's motion on this, because that's where I'm at. It's not about the legality of the TIP or the LRTP. It's about stating the facts that we need increased capacity for moving people around Hillsborough County.
Okay, so board members, I have everybody whose light is on, I have on a list as the order that your light came on. So other than Mr. Slater, if you could turn your lights off so that we don't get the feedback, and I will call you in the order that I saw your light come on. Mr. Slater.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to make 2 points, really. One is needing to be in the TIP for any kind of eligibility for any of those projects for grants, and grant opportunities come up for a variety of reasons at a variety of times. The other thing that I would really want clarification on, and it's been a long time since I've administered a federal program, but under some federal guidelines, if you have spent federal dollars on preliminary stages of a project and then you remove it from the TIP, you are required to pay back those federal dollars. I just would want to make sure that that is not a case that we would have to address unknowingly.
Thank you, Board Member Slater. Board Member Gray.
Okay, I think the obtaining of grants, it's a hypothetical situation because we can or cannot, or may not, speaking on the Hillsborough County Public School Board, where we do grants. Hopefully we get them. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. What we're feeling, and this is Mayor Kilton, you make a very good point, at least out of all the respect from this room to constituents, I think it's fair to say that the constituency will appreciate their hard work, the diligence coming before this committee for probably over a year, maybe 2 years, that if it doesn't do any funding harm, and I note the possibility of grants, Mr. Wastel, I appreciate that, but if it doesn't do any harm funding-wise, and we are wanting to serve the will of the people, then I think it's a very goodwill gesture, because it's not going to make a big difference either way, just to take it off. And that's how I feel. And Mayor Kilton, I respect your feelings and your philosophy, because you're near and dear to the heart of Plant City, and I know that. But I'm also near and dear to the constituents of this entire district, and I know the district pretty well. So those are my 2 cents. So where the motion goes, it goes as far as we got a second, subsequent, et cetera. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Board Member. Council Members Clendenin and Hurtak, to be honest, I saw both your lights at the same time. I don't know who was first. So Council Member Clendenin and then Council Member Hurtak.
Yeah, this may be a point of order, and it's reference to the procedure. I believe that this body cannot enact rules or regulations that would violate higher authority, state or federal rules. And our attorney, who is designated to provide legal advice to this organization, read the rule about the 5-year plan and what the requirements are for that particular plan. And again, I think would be a consensus, and I think if you'd asked, you'd see that this does not meet that requirement. Within 5 years, they have to have anticipated funding to show up on the TIP. Now, obviously our long-term plan, yes, but the 5-year TIP, it doesn't meet that requirement. That is the advice that the attorney that has been designated by this board to provide us legal advice has provided us. And again, this is, and that falls back into that honesty program. We have to follow procedures, and if that is the advice and that is what the TIP is intended to be, and that's what the rules are, we should comply with those rules. I also want to speak to the issue of that Commissioner Bostel discussed about not being on there and getting money. Well, clearly we have money that came on Del Mabry, which was not in the TIP. We're meeting to place that into the TIP now. If for some reason money was to become available, I can't imagine that this board wouldn't reconvene to have a TIP amendment. So I think, again, a point of order that this would not be in compliance with law and it should not be considered.
Councilmember Hurtak, then Commissioner Myers.
I believe other people have spoken about the amendment being taken off, but since the substitute motion is to just pass it, I have some comments I want to make on that. So Mayor Kilton talked about us being awesome, and we are. We're awesome at killing people. We are the 8th highest, most dangerous places for people for pedestrians in the country. We're good at killing people, and we're getting better at it. That's the problem. So capacity isn't helping that. If we were to take the money and spend it on transit and not on roads, we could stop killing people. I mean, that is the reality. If you look at that money, that's basically what the CAC is telling us today, that we are not listening to them, and that we are choosing capacity over lives. And that's what this vote is today. If you vote for this, you're choosing capacity over lives. And the reason I know this, Orlando and Miami, who both have a lot of cars, have been able to reduce themselves. They are now, Miami's 17th, Orlando is 25th. And where did I get this? Creative Loafing, actually it was Florida Phoenix, just printed it today. This is information that just came out today. We are the 8th most dangerous place for pedestrians in the nation. It is absolutely embarrassing. It's embarrassing for all of us. And I don't believe that that is what any of us want. I don't believe it's what FDOT wants. I mean, very clearly. But we are not taking the money that would really save people's lives and putting it where it needs to go. It doesn't mean we can't do widening projects. It just means if we took even a portion of that money and put it toward what we heard about earlier, signal improvements, crosswalk improvements. I mean, we're not even talking about adding bike lanes. Like, I'm not even talking about that stuff that we work on in the city, and FDOT has partnered with us very well on that. We're just saying, what are our priorities? Do we need to add capacity in places? Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. But right now, I don't want to go to another wreath hanging or funeral service or anything like that, because we aren't strong enough to say we want some of this money to go towards saving lives.
Commissioner Myers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I joined this board in 2020, it's the same conversation then that I'm hearing today. Nothing has changed. We're still talking on the same project, So if we're going to find funding, I would say we need to find funding for rail. If we want to move people, because we're stuck. You can agree, board. I mean, everybody wants to get home early, and with the number of people moving here, we just can't. So what is best right now? And I don't agree with, if we take it off, then we'll find funding. Why can't we say, if we really want to do this project and find funding, just like we just added some projects for the TIP, but that might be a call from the governor, who knows? Or from the secretary from high up from Tallahassee to say add this because what they're looking with the raise. I don't know. But I do hear my constituents in my district. At the last meeting, I voted no, because I'm going to support them. I'm going to vote no tonight, because I hear my constituents, and I've heard them 5 years ago. It's the same. Nothing has changed. So if we want to look at something as a TPO, let's focus on how we can get some rail here to really move people and make things much better than widening all of our roads. And we still, the more we widen, the more people move here, and so you still can't really get around and get home as quick as you would like. I mean, I'm in East Tampa, and there are days I can't even get on the interstate just to come downtown. I got to take the back road to try to get here quick enough when I'm leaving home 30 to 35 minutes just to come 3 miles. This is what we should be looking at as an organization. Could we really sit and talk about the really need is rail? That's what we should be focusing on, and not to get off the subject tonight with the TPO. But if we're going to find some money and find some grant money, that's what we need to start presenting, because we have a list that's with how many projects on there. And they've been the same projects ever since I've been on the board. Some move up, some move back, but they're not moving too fast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Board members, are there other, well, let me make sure nobody who hasn't spoken yet doesn't want to speak. Is there further discussion from somebody we have not heard from?
Can I make a point of order on that motion to amend? Because there was a motion on the floor and on approving this with just stripping out the 43182-1-3, and then the motion to amend was approving it with that basically included, which is really inappropriate for a parliamentarian procedure. The proper way to dispose of that issue would be take up the first motion, and then it was up or down, and then Commissioner Wassel could come back in and make a motion to approve it as a whole. But basically, he's doing a double negative on this, and that is an improper motion.
Well,
Mr. Chair, it was, I believe it was a substitute motion.
It
so it's
was a
proper.
substitute motion, and that's been.
But it's not a substitute motion. It's actually just basically reversing the motion that was made. It wasn't, I mean.
So a substitute motion is a motion on the same topic that contradicts the initial motion. So there's going to be a vote on the substitute motion first. If it succeeds, there will not be a vote on the main motion. If it fails, then it reverts back to the main motion.
That is consistent with what we've done here before.
Did we rule on the point of order on this, whether this was a properly legal motion to be made by the TPO?
Councilmember Clendenin, I'm not sure what you're expecting from me, because our lawyer has told us one thing and our Secretary of DOT has told us something that is somewhat different. So I can ask for some discussion between the two of them if that will satisfy your point of order, but I am not qualified.
Well, I think we defer to the attorney on these issues, do we not?
Okay. Well, you asked for a point of order, and I'll do the best I can. So, Mr. Clark, Secretary Hall, you've said, I mean, I know you were reading from a document. Secretary Hall, you talked about the practice of having several projects that don't show funding because we are trying to move them forward with alternate funding. I know we also have the Regional Accelerator grant program running here, which the whole purpose of that is to try to identify alternate funding for projects that are not currently funded. So would you two please try to reconcile these positions for the board so we have our eyes fully wide open on this? And Councilmember Young, I do see you. I will get to you when we can resolve this issue.
And I can start, Mr. Chair. Understand, like you said, I'm simply reading a sentence from the state statute on MPOs. The Secretary has advised he's familiar with it and is advising that it's compliant with this being remaining in the tip is compliant with state statute. That's fine. I'm not, at my level, I'm not pulled into sort of the drafting of these documents, the compliance of individual lines within the tip with state statute, that I don't get pulled into those reviews, and that's fine. I just was putting this out there because of the way this was being described, but if this is a common thing and the Secretary is advising it's compliant with state statute, then that's just fine with me.
Dr. Wong.
I'm sorry, I'll be very brief. TPO board members, I want to offer two comments that address some of the procedural concerns that were raised around the table. I'll start with Mr. Slater, the federal funding, and if this project is removed from the tip, would that have to be paid back? I'll look to Elizabeth and Secretary Hall to confirm that this design money was state, not federal. Number two is the procedural and statutory compliance issue that we're just discussing. I will note that the draft tip with both the 275 widening project and the Gibsonton Drive interchange projects, all showing zeros across the board, were already reviewed by FDOT staff in a previous version of the tip. That review came back clean with no issues flagged. Ultimately, compliance would be satisfied by the TPO, reviewed by FDOT before it's sent up to central office to be included in the state tip.
Okay, Ms. Watkins or Secretary Hall, can you shed any light on the potential for a refund of design money that has been spent?
To the best of my knowledge, it's state funding. Yeah. I'm not concerned about reimbursement, to the best of my knowledge. And just for Cameron's sake, because what Cameron's reviewing, the statute does not contemplate directly SIS, which SIS is a longer plan than 5 years. And so that's just really, that's the differential. And that's the reason why I can say that it's compliant, because the projects that are in there, that even though there's zero fund in the 5 year, it's consistent with the SIS plan.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Young.
Just a few comments. One, just, listening to the conversation, but, listening to public comment, I think that there's something to be said that, our CAC feels as though they are not being listened to or heard. They are just as invested as we are. And so, for them to feel that, they're not being taken seriously, or they're taking their time to meet and, go in depth with these issues, and they feel as though they're not being heard. I just think there's something to be said about that. I will also say to Commissioner Meyer's point with light rail, living in DC, the importance of having transit, public transit, is I have a friend in New York who just got her license at the age of 35 because she doesn't need it. So if we're growing as a city, that's obvious. And part of that transportation is how we're moving people from one way to another without using a car. So I think that, as we're talking about transportation, we're talking about finding money, finding dollars. I think that does need to be a part of the conversation. And also with us being, I think you said, we're the 8th most dangerous for pedestrians. As council members, we get, you get these emails of things that happen. And to see an email come in that a pedestrian was hit on a bike not too far from our office. I mean, that's the reality. So if we're continuing to grow as a city, I think we really have to, I've said this already, we're in 2026. We have to start being a little bit more innovative about how we're moving people. The options are endless. We're in 2026. There are other ways that we can move people. And then just to, to public comment, from what I heard, it's just the I-275 from Hillsborough to Bears. I'm listening to the conversation, and it's sounding as if we're talking about the entire project. From what I heard, it's just Hillsborough to Bears. So I don't see why we're saying if we remove this, it's like there's going to be, this huge effect, and we're not going to be able to do anything. It's from what I see on this paper, and from what I'm hearing, it's Hillsborough to Bears. So that's all.
Is there further? Yes, Secretary Holt.
So I'll just say it again because I said it before. Whether it's in the tip or not, it does not impact DOT. So just understand that. This was included for information. It is compliant by law because of SIS. If it's not in the tip, it changes absolutely nothing for us. So just understand, because there's a conversation of compliance versus, I don't know what you want to call it, practice. And so by compliance, it's compliant because of SIS. Does it need to be in there? It does not need to be in there. So do with it what you may, but just want to make sure it's clear.
Board members, is there further discussion of the motion? Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, then why do we keep discussing this project? Justin, why do we keep discussing it? Because it really gets the community upset all the time when we have the same project coming before us, and then we hear a statement tonight, in or out. It makes no difference.
Commissioner, respectfully, I don't keep bringing it up. The DOT doesn't keep bringing it. It keeps getting brought up. And so every year we try to find at least in the past couple of years, I'm not going to say in the past, in the history that there wasn't things that DOT was doing, but in the recent history with me, I've been trying to reassure everybody that I'm not doing anything out there. And I really am running out of options on how to show I'm not doing out there. So I put out a thing that says zeros, and it still became a conversation here tonight. So respectfully, Commissioner, I don't know. I don't bring it up. I'll talk about I-4. You want to talk about I-4 express lanes? I'll speak my mind on that and the need for that. But I-275 north to Hillsborough, I don't bring it up.
Okay. So then, Johnny, why do we keep adding this on to be discussed?
Commissioner, that was not TPO staff's decision to include it in the tip. It was transmitted to us from FDOT.
To communicate, to understand, to communicate straight zeros. This is a response to feedback from previous years where we've got money hidden somewhere. We're trying to fund it secretly. We're trying to,
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I spend more time on this. I have 5 counties that I'm responsible for. I've got 3.3 million drivers daily in my district, and I spend more time on talking about this one project than anything else in my almost $5 billion work program. So we put straight zeros out there to be like, it's straight zeros, and it's still become quite the topic.
Okay, and the last thing I just share, I heard tonight some other projects, but we should focus on our agenda of the projects that's before us and approve and not add something different. That's all.
So, Councilmember Hurtak, and then board, at some point, we are going to have to vote on this. We have two motions that are still live. And
So I think what Commissioner Myers is asking is, why is this project still here? Because people clearly don't want it. And I mean, if it is the top project you hear about the most, then the public has made it very clear they don't want it. And the reason we have it is because Commissioner Wastel put it on the LRTP at our last TIP meeting. So that is why it's still there, because he added it back and other people voted on it. That's why. But my question then is, and I'm going to ask Chair if this is the appropriate place or not. I really believe that we have to talk about the CAC. I'm very disappointed to hear that they feel unheard, but not surprised. How many of you meet with your CAC representative before this meeting? I meet with my representative every single month between the CAC meeting and this meeting. Mine, by the way, is Dana Lazarus. She does a great job. We actually had coffee. I think it was like an hour and a half on Saturday, where we talked about this very thing. How many of you have talked to your CAC members at all?
Point of order.
No. This is a very important discussion.
Commissioner Wastel.
And if you want to have this afterward, that's fine.
We have a point of order.
Mr. Chair, this is completely ingermane to the conversation. She's no longer even speaking to the seconded motion that's on the floor. If there's nothing germane to the motion, then we need to proceed with voting.
Well, it is germane to the motion because the CAC voted against this, and that's my point. We are not connected to the public anymore, and the public is letting us know.
Okay. So we do have a motion under discussion. If there's further discussion of the motion, we will have it, but I would like to focus on the vote that we have pending on the motion by Commissioner Wastel to approve the TIP. If there is no further discussion, I'm going to call Councilmember Clendenin.
I would just implore you to want to listen to the folks in the city of Tampa and also listen to the secretary, that there's no harm in removing this, and with the input to give us that deference on this vote, and let's remove this from the TIP. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're voting now on the motion by Commissioner Wastel, which is to approve the TIP as is. So, Ms. Desiano, could we please have a roll call vote?
Wastel?
Yes.
Myers?
No.
Cohen?
No.
Bowles?
No.
Clendenin?
No.
Hurtak?
No.
Young?
No.
Kilton?
Yes.
Gray?
No.
Klug?
Yes.
Stevens?
No.
Slater?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Motion failed 6-2. 1, 2, 3. 6-8. Commissioner Myers, Commissioner Cohen, Commissioner Bowles, Councilmember Clendenin, Councilmember Hurtak, Councilmember Young, School Board Member Gray, Member Stevens voted no.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Desiano. The motion fails. Now we go back to the main motion, which was originally made by Board Member Gray, which was to strike the 275 widening project from the, which was duly seconded by I don't remember who it was. It was Commissioner Myers.
Mr. Chair, can I interject? Could Dr.
Yes.
Wong, just for itemization purposes, can you identify what is the line number or whatever so that it's clear for the record?
Yes, I can. Board members, that is FPN number 431821-3.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. Are we voting on removing that one item or all the items that have no
Yes,
funding?
Yes, Board Member, good question. And for clarification, that was the main motion made by Board Member Gray, was to remove that one item. The question will then be whether we will still have the tip unapproved to have further discussions, but the motion on the floor right now is just to surgically remove that one item. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Bowles.
I have a question for you, Secretary. You're getting hit tonight. You said earlier that leaving the Gibsonton one on there, and if there was a federal grant that matched, and that's what kind of, I think, spun some of us into a different direction, that there's no federal grant currently pending for that. But it just adds that layer or that element in there that should we need to do that.
There's a grant that's been applied for on that project.
On that particular one.
Correct.
So there is something that's possibly pending.
Pending, yeah.
So that probably needs to stay.
I mean,
for that particular purpose, but Dr. Wong pointed out that it would still have to come back here anyway.
yeah, so understand that leaving it on the tip does not mean that when we receive the grant money, that the grant money is automatically added. The grant money would have to come before the board as a tip amendment. Leaving it in the tip is just signifying to the federal government, because one of the questions they ask in the application is this consistent with the tip? Is this consistent with the LRTP? Those are a few of the questions we get asked. So we said yes on the application for that because it was. So this is not the same situation as 275. This is not like the first new appearance for I-75.
So it would probably be more prudent to leave that one in just because of those little nuances.
My advice, but like I said, I mean, if it's removed, the application was a point in time, the application has been submitted. I mean, if it, like I said, the funding has to come before the board for addition anyway. So just being candid, I don't know if it really matters. I'd have to ask Federal Highway if they would change their opinion because it was struck from the tip. I don't know. I'd have to ask.
And the last thing for the guardrail ones, for example, that are on page 138 and 139, those type, they're so far down that.
I mean, just being candid, I would need to go back and look into those.
Okay.
I'm only aware of Gibsonton because I know that we submitted a grant for it, and I know that was a request in the grant. Is it consistent?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Hurtak.
I just had a question because I thought the motion was just to take out the Hillsborough to Bears. Is that correct?
That was the original
Okay.
motion.
So I just want a clarification.
Well, yeah,
That was it.
absolutely, but my follow-up was kind of because the
That is
chair
the-
has kind of
that is the
indicated
motion.
that there may be some furtherance, and I don't want to keep
Is
Dra-
there further discussion on the motion? Okay. Because of the thorniness of all this, let's do a roll call vote on this one too, Ms. Desiano.
Wostel,
No.
Myers,
Yes.
Cohen, Bowles,
Yes.
Clendenin,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Kilton,
No.
Gray,
Yes.
Klug,
No.
I'm sorry,
No.
Stevens,
Yes.
Slater,
No.
Joseph,
No.
Ross,
No.
motion carried 8-6. Wostel, Kilton, Klug, Slater, Joseph, and Ross voted no.
Thank you. All right, so we're still left with the
Move the
tip.
tip as amended.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Cohen, seconded by Councilmember Clendenin. Is there discussion of the motion? If not, Almost made it. Councilmember Hurtak.
Sorry, but I really do, again, believe that this is a good reckoning for us to think about what are the priorities of the public. The public wants more money for transit. We need more money for transit. How do we get capacity? Transit. So I really believe the next tip needs to have more money for transit. I don't have a problem with capacity, but that really, it's not, we cannot build roads our way out of this. And if anybody's showing that can happen, it's Miami and Orlando right now. So we have neighbors that are doing this. It's our time to start thinking about that.
Okay, Ms. DeCiano, can we, yes, Mayor Kilton.
Yeah, I just have to reiterate that what I'm making is a protest vote, and just in general on the conversation on transportation, right? And I understand and give deference to my colleagues that are Tampa-focused. I understand that. But you have to recognize and understand that without people coming from East County, from Pasco, from South County, from St. Pete, you economically will die on the vine. You're not going to get everybody you need coming from those areas just by transit. And I understand that transit has to be part of the conversation, and that needs to be in a dense area in Tampa. That should be part of the conversation. But I'm telling you that I'm trying to look at this from a holistic, regional perspective, and that's where my vote's coming from, and that's what I need to state publicly on why I'm voting the way that I am on this. So again, I'm a volunteer that had to be elected, and I have the luxury of being able to make that comment where I understand that some of my colleagues don't have that same luxury, but I have to state that before I place my vote.
Board Member Gray, did you wish to comment on the motion? Okay, your light's on there. So, okay.
Mayor.
So further discussion of the motion. Okay.
Just real quickly.
Whose light is down there? Is that somebody who hasn't spoken so much? Okay.
So much.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Yeah, I want to, and Mayor, with respect, I think what you're looking at, and to kind of go off of what my coworker, Councilwoman Hurtak, said, it's not that we don't understand that we have to have capacity, but we're looking for more balance. And when you look at the billions and billions of dollars of pavement versus a relatively insignificant amount of transit in these long-term, there's going to have to be a reckoning that at some point we have to start shifting that balance. And, you know, obviously that point is not tonight. It's not for the discussion tonight, but it's an appeal to every one of the decision makers in our community and in our counties that we have to start pushing down on this side and pushing up on that side. So it's trying to find some type of balance where we can actually have an environment where we can have a viable transit system to relieve some of that congestion. Thank you.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Ms. DeCiano, would you please call the roll?
Wostel?
No.
Myers?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Bowles?
Yes.
Clendenin?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Kilton?
No.
Gray?
Yes.
Klug?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Joseph?
No.
Ross?
Yes.
Motion carried 11-3. Wostel, Kilton, and Joseph voted no.
Thank you, Ms. DeCiano. Dr. Wong's report.
Thank you, board members. I'll be brief. Thank you all for attending this evening and for a good, healthy conversation. If you've had enough, well, you're going to get a break. Reminder that this board will recess in July. Our next regular meeting will be on August 12th. Moving on to item B, Tri-County BOCC June 5th meeting recap. Last Friday, the 3 executive directors of Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas attended the Tri-County BOCC meeting where the commissions received a status update on the regional merger study, and they were shown a very preliminary draft of the interlocal agreement and bylaws per their request. As I understand it, the Hillsborough County Commissioners and Pasco County Commissioners were only provided those documents a couple days before the meeting, so there wasn't much time for them to digest and comment. But some of the reactions that came up were with respect to the 25-member board size still being too large, and there was some contemplation about whether or not the state legislature should help direct this outcome. While the next meeting date for the Tri-County BOCC hasn't yet been set, some of the commissioners requested that city managers or council chairs of the other across Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough should be invited to participate in that discussion. Moving on to C, Bright Line Station Area Study. Happy to announce that the TPO's Bright Line Station Area Study was awarded the One Bay McIntosh Award at the TBRPC's Future of the Regions Award program. One Bay is the highest honor, so thank you for allowing staff to lead that planning study, and thank you, Mayor Ross, for attending to accept it. And then lastly, for legislative updates, I'll be very brief. There is a lot to discuss when we come back, but the Build America 2050 Transportation Reauthorization Bill was heard and approved by the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Still has many committee steps before it's brought to the House and Senate floor, but for MPOs, the amount of planning funds are relatively consistent to the IIJA. There is a greater amount of money in this bill. However, a greater portion of it is not guaranteed. About 20% of the funds would be subject to annual appropriations and hence also subject to future budget cuts. Funding for highways and bridges will increase by nearly 10%, whereas transit funding across multiple modes would decrease by more than 20%. The primary sources of funding that the TPO uses to get local projects up off the ground, Surface Transportation Block Grant and Transportation Alternatives, are held steady compared to the IIJA at $75 billion and $8 billion respectively. So in this initial draft, which can still change, MPOs are faring quite well. Transportation funding overall is projected to increase, but again, less of that money is guaranteed. Any questions for me?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Wong. Old or new business, board members? I have one quick thing. Dr. Wong, could you talk to somebody at DOT about the issue that was brought up by Keith Wagner in public comment? It seems like there must be some interim solutions to this problem. He doesn't have to wait till 2045 for. Could you report back to us and let me know? Because I'd like to, as the chair, I'd like to reach out to him to let him know that there's some follow-up on this.
Yes,
maybe give him a point of contact, give him some information.
I got it.
Well, I've got his contact here too, but, okay, good. Any other old or new business to come before the board? Okay, we will stand adjourned.
Okay.